Okay, so in the usual way, any questions, particularly those slides that we didn't have time to look at? Did anyone pick up anything from there?
Oh, lots of corn pictures at least. At least you know something more about corn now, right?
Kathy, you had a footnote on one of those slides about dismal science, and I presume it wasn't a reflection on your own work.
Did I went quickly, right, to skip that one? Yeah. That was...
Do buffalo eat switchgrass?
Do buffalo eat switchgrass? I don't know.
Could you do some grazing on it as well?
Well, if you graze it, then you don't have it for biofuel production, and I doubt it would be a very efficient thing, but I don't know.
Frank.
My question is whether you have thought about how, if there were a political will to do this, how you would go about measuring and putting a price on the externalities that you talked about, which are now free. So how would you go about trying to, using economic tools to tilt somewhat to switchgrass?
Okay, so the direct answer to that question is I would not try to use economic tools of value to convince a single producer. What I would try to do is use economic valuing to convince policy that we need to correct this externality with a measure. One way I would do it and have done it, and I'd love to show you my website. We've done work in Iowa on the value of improving lakes, reducing the amounts of nutrients in lakes. And the way we've done that is take information from people on how often they visit lakes of low water quality and high water quality. Note that they drive further and spend more time and money to go to lakes of of high water quality. Then, through a series of statistical analysis, deducing the monetized value, that if they could go to lakes closer, they would get improved value. So I am happy to give you numbers on the value of reducing nutrients in lakes. Having said that, there's a whole bunch of those ecosystem services that don't have a value, that we don't have studies of that sort done on, and so it would be clearly an underestimate. But the question is a great one, and we ought to be doing more of it.
Kathy, one from me. The way you've described the way you did these analyses, it's very much in terms of large areas of land, and are they going to have corn, soy, or are they going to have switchgrass? And yet your very first slides showed pictures of most of the US, because most of the US is the Mississippi Basin and the amount of material that comes off that. Now, we use setbacks as a form of environmental quality management to reduce runoff, to reduce pollution movement. The answer is no, and I haven't even come out with a question. God, she's good.
We don't use setbacks. Since price of corn has gone up, you can drive through Iowa and see where people used to keep some distance between rivers, and now they plant right, the slopes are going like this. They plant right on down. There are no requirements of setbacks.
So the question would have been, is there scope to have our cake and eat it here? So could one reinstate the concept of effective environmental management through setbacks, but rather than seeing that as unused land, unproductive land, that's precisely where you can get your switchgrass?
Yeah, yes.
And I've always loved the idea of having the cake and eating it, and
yes.
I've never yet got it right.
There is a possibility, and the slides that I went through really fast were really, a lot of people have talked about, and this goes to the question that Al asked, we've got these corn ethanol plants out there, they're using the grain. If and when the engineers figure out cost-effective ways to take all that cellulose, either from switchgrass or from corn stover, and figure out how to use it to make ethanol, biofuels, well, let's just take the land we have, where corn is really productive, grow it, and then where you have more marginal land, or land that's really, you ought to have out of production for environmental purposes, put switchgrass there. And that's a discussion, something that's gotten a lot of discussion. The economics of it are really, really, really hard, because not only do you first have to figure out how to make biofuels work, the switchgrass work, then you have to make it work in like the hardest circumstance possible, and that's when the feedstock is all spread out. So yes, but I think that's the hope, but I think that one, that's not always 5 years away. I'm afraid that one's always 25 years away.
Added up all the cost of the denitrification water systems as well as pricing the economic toxic zone?
The first part, yes. The second part, no. The first part, so we've actually talked with the Des Moines Water Works. I know Jerry knows the folks there well, too. And we said, well, if you could reduce the amount of nitrogen in your rivers and streams and you didn't have to run the denitrification plant, how much would it save you? And they gave us the data and the numbers, and it's not very big. Once they built the plant, it's cheap to run. And even building the plant is not clear that the cost, so on that value of an ecosystem service alone, you would not, it wouldn't pass the benefit cost test. Now, that doesn't include.
All the way down to Mississippi. This must be all the water systems that drop from the Mississippi.
It's only one.
There's only one.
In the whole world, I think.
Nah,
That's denitrified.
I thought there's more than one. But, so, yeah, why don't the rest of them have it?
It requires, you know, over 10 milligrams per liter, which is the health-based standard for methylglobin, and
That's right.
that only occurs in a few places. Des Moines is one of them, and that's the only plant that I know of where they actually pay to take the nitrate out.
The second part of the question was the economic value or negative value of the hypoxic zone.
And I'm not aware of anyone who's done that work. And again, it needs to be done. It's really important. And like things like the damage associated with carbon, cost of carbon is sometimes, it's really, really hard. Now, the U.S. government and EPA and others have generated a cost of carbon, which will always be controversial, and but it's hard to do, but conceptually it's important, and we need to start doing stuff like that.
From memory, if I can come in, there was a study of that kind done on the northwest of the Black Sea, which also had the same large-scale hypoxic zone, and I think there was an economic value put on that.
I believe, yes, I think that's exactly right. I remember reading that. Yes, they did, and they did a stated preference, set of what we in economics call stated preference surveys to get at that. And I have seen it, but I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. You're exactly right, though. That was done there.
And the value is odd because it crops up in unexpected places. So there was, in that case, there was negative fishery impact, but in bordering states, the other side of the Black Sea, for example,
yeah,
because the area in question served as a nursery for many of the fish species of economic relevance in that area.
Yeah, one of the funky things about the Gulf Dead Zone is that there are not huge commercial fisheries effects. There's some, and they're starting to measure more and more, but it isn't this. In fact, sometimes the little fishes, when they swim away, make for good fishing as they swim at the edge of the zone. So there's some funny kinds of.
Okay. I'd like to ask, can we all thank both our speakers once more? I think the schedule is we take a brief comfort break, and we would be back at 4:20.